Louise Bedford here, your host of the Talking Trading podcast. This is how traders excel. Often we overestimate our own abilities. I was talking to a person responsible for getting a plane to fly itself in case there's an emergency with the pilot. Now, this is called aeronautical independence. They did a survey to find out how many people just in the general population felt that they could fly a plane and land it, because of course that is the thing that we need to do to get all of the people out safely. 50% of people that were male said that they could land the plane. Actually, only 10% of women said that they could land the plane, which is interesting because if you ask pilots will tell you that the percentage that could land a plane is closer to 0. We constantly overestimate our own abilities. We underestimate the complexity that absolutely high performance can bring, and we need to maintain our mindset at the same time. Now, this is why I've invited Casey Stubbs onto the show. Now, Casey and I have known each other for quite a while now. My goodness. Casey is from tradingstrategyguides.com. Not only have I been on Casey's podcast and he's been on my podcast, we know a lot of people in common, which is always a good sign. Now, this will also appear on Casey's podcast, which is a lovely thing. Casey's podcast is called How to Trade It. Chris Tate has also been on that podcast as well. Casey is an Army veteran and he is a trader and he is a father to 9 children, which is an amazing feat in itself. He became a self-made millionaire after what he described as being a broke dad, and trading has literally changed his world. I've asked Casey to share lessons from his background as an Army veteran and to let us gain an insight into the way his mind works. And you can definitely get more of an insight on his website, tradingstrategyguides.com. Casey, welcome to Talking Trading.
Thank you so much for having me, Louise.
I've been so excited about talking to you. You've got so many interesting guests on your podcast. I'd like to talk a little bit about your early experiences. Do you feel that your early experiences with money set you up for success, or did it provide something that you knew you wanted to avoid, thus giving you like a negative modeling process? I'm curious to hear about that.
So I think that my background in money helped me out quite a bit, which I came from a working family. So my dad worked. Actually, my mom stayed home, but my dad worked, and he was a diesel mechanic. And so he worked really hard, didn't make a ton of money. There were 4 kids. And so we had to really save, and it was a little tight for them and for us growing up. As kids, we didn't really notice it too much, but it did teach me to be a good saver. And so when I joined the military, I was a very good saver. I didn't spend a lot of money, which was a lot different than the other families, the other people that I had met, because everybody would basically live paycheck to paycheck. And so I felt like that saving foundation helped me out quite a bit.
I too, as you know, am from 4 children. I'm the youngest. There really wasn't much money left at the end of the month. And I did appreciate some of those early lessons in how to be frugal. I think that is one of the initial ways we bonded. And you know, I've always got such a soft spot for Army guys. And girls, of course, as well. Anybody with that military discipline, it seems to translate beautifully to the stock market. What I want to know as well is, now that you've experienced success in the markets, what continues to drive you?
Well, really focusing on helping people. My vision is to take profitable traders and help them get more profitable, or traders that aren't profitable, help them bridge the gap and get to profitability. And so working with people, always just spending time with people and helping them and sharing what I know. It's a lot of fun to be able to get a group of people together and teach them things and see them grow.
I like that. That giving back is so important. You know, we can see really a lot of isolation in the trading world where you're making your own decisions and you're having to live and die by that. So being able to find that within you to give back, I think is lovely. And I think the other aspect is that it is almost impossible to think of people from those military type of backgrounds without the word discipline. Discipline is such a part of that type of mindset. And I think it does translate beautifully to trading. What are some of the skills and techniques that you've adopted that helped you be successful as a military person, but can also be adapted to the markets?
So I was talking with my trading coach this week for my service, and his name's Manny. And Manny's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were in the Army. You must have really got a lot of discipline." And I said, "Well, that's kind of my weakest area. So apparently I didn't learn enough."
It's your weakest
And
area.
it really is.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Give me an
And
example. How does this
well,
work for
it
you?
ties into what you talked about on the front end. And I don't know if you did that because you wanted to weave it in the conversation, but I was so excited about that intro about flying the plane because I can 100% guarantee that I can fly a plane and land it, even though I've never been inside of a cockpit. Okay, so I just know that for a fact. And a pilot might say there's 0%, but I think he's wrong. Just like I could probably do surgery, heart surgery, or anything else without ever being in an operating room. I don't know why, but that's just the kind of overconfidence I have. And that's also the reason why I'm so terrible at discipline, is because I literally think that I could do anything.
I'm loving it. Do you know, though, this is the type of attitude that got us out of the caves, Casey. We needed people to say, yes, I can kill that fanged creature that's living out there in that valley, and I can make sure that we can all migrate safely. I just think that that is what is required, but in the markets, it can bite us. How has that bitten you, that level of confidence?
Right. And that's the thing is, yeah, it's definitely bitten me quite a few times. And that's why it's been hard. Discipline's been hard for me. Another funny little story is just a book that I read. And the actual name of the book is called God's Smuggler, but it was about a guy who was in the army, and he was in the Dutch army. This was like in the 40s. And they asked him if he could drive an armored personnel carrier. It was like a little tank. And he was 19. He's like, yeah, of course I can, even though he'd never done it before. And he ended up running into like 5 other vehicles and ended up in a ditch because he told people that he could do something that he couldn't do. And thankfully it wasn't an airplane, but it's just funny. And I don't know, you're into the psychology side, but I don't know what causes people to have absolute overconfidence when there really it's not based in reality. For me, it's just kind of humorous, but I've learned a lot of hard lessons that way. Just hit myself in the face so many times because of overconfidence, over trading, risking too much money. And it's really a miracle that I'm still trading after all these years.
And the lovely thing is that we can share our lessons, because I too have stepped on many rakes twice. That is just unbelievable. I make the mistake and then I make the mistake again just to cement that mistake. Fascinating how that works. I do think that there is a lot to be said for having enough confidence to initiate trading, but then also having a humbleness of spirit to realize that when we're wrong, that word is sometimes so difficult, isn't it, for people to actually bring out and to show that aspect of themselves. Have you got any techniques where people can have a little bit more reality to their thinking? Because you don't want to be overconfident, but you don't want to be underconfident either.
That's true. And I really like that you use the word humble. I think humility is a great thing for a trader and for leaders in general, because when you get humbled by the market, if it doesn't crush you, it makes you stronger and it makes you more aware. So I would say a good strategy for me is just to evaluate risk first, right? And so for me now, the biggest thing is always risk, manage risk. And trading is just about managing risk and not necessarily about how much money I can make.
Managing risk. I have got some research for you on this. Now, you're going to have to roll with me because it's an obscure piece of research that I have got is stuck in my head, and I'd love your thoughts about it. In 2011, they moved Munich Airport. What they did is they needed to relocate it, but what a wonderful opportunity to track what noise did for people's mindsets, because it was the same people living underneath the flight path compared to a quieter environment. So they looked at kids and they found that children in schools, that their IQ dropped, their so-called IQ, their measured IQ dropped, and their confidence increased when they were subjected to increased noise. Now, they knew that it was nothing to do with any other factor because it was the same child that they measured. Now, let's think about this. What can this mean? I know I have not prepared you for this, Casey, but I want to talk this through. If we are under physiological pressure, do you think that can mess up our risk management?
Okay, so the first thing is that the noise lowered the IQ. Is that correct?
No, the increased noise. When
noise.
They were under the flight path, their IQ dropped because they actually performed, middle school children performed 3 years on average at a younger level on test scores. So they were not taking in the information during their homework. Maybe it was cluttering them. Their physiological symptoms were of a higher stressed individual. They had more cortisol in their system. But amidst all of that physiological pressure, those kids that were under the flight path were saying, yeah, I can do anything.
Okay, well, that's really good. I love it. I love that because I'm not sure where the IQ parts ties in, but the pressure is really important. I love pressure, because I'm different, but the more pressure you have, and it increases your capacity, right? It increases your capacity to carry things and to keep pushing on as long as you don't give up. It's the whole concept of, metal in the fire, the impurities come out. And then when it's done, it's like very strong, right? They melt all that out. And so the pressure of life and that cortisol, it can be bad for you if you don't handle it well, but if you can keep moving forward. And I think a secret to that is have a vision, right? If you have a vision and you understand that the things that you're going through, so in trading, your vision is, okay, I want to be financially free. I want to be able to help my family. I want to be able to help people with a cause. And then that pressure will help you be able to perform better in a long term if you can go through it.
Yes, if you can make it through. And what you're talking about as well is something I was talking about with Tom Barso the other day, who is in Jack Schwager's Second Market Wizards book, about visualizing your future self. So when Tom started trading, he didn't have any traders around him. So he didn't have that support. I mean, what you're doing on your podcast and what I'm doing, we're providing a network of support for people to hopefully help them scaffold in towards their goals. So Tom actually visualized the perfect trader. He had in mind that ideal person who always managed risk and always was calm and always took a breath before typing in an order so they didn't make a mistake. And over time, he's become closer and closer to that ideal trader. And I think that is quite an interesting concept. Who in your mind is that ideal trader? Do you have a mentor? Or can you construct a version of yourself that is that perfect trader? What are some of the mind games that you've played, Casey, to get you closer to making fewer mistakes and to sticking to your trading plan in more specific terms?
So there's two things that are really important about what you said. So the first one I would say is mentor. I always have a mentor at all times. I just think it's so important, because it helps me be transparent, because to the world, I'm Mr. Strong and Mr. Tough, and I don't want to let people know that I have a weak side. I want to be humble, but I still want to be strong. But for my mentor, I can just be transparent and share and say, look, I got this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, and, be open. I think transparency and open has really helped me. And then the other part of that is I have a process, right? I have a process, right? And it's not even a trading process. It kind of is, but it's a daily process that says, okay, I go through a checklist. Today, I'm going to trade well. And that's step one. Step two, I identify the risk. Today, I'm going to risk this much amount. And then the next part is I do a self-evaluation. I say, am I going to self-sabotage myself? Is there any way that that's going to happen? No, right? I'm aware, because self-sabotage is a secret thing that traders don't know about. It's psychological things, beliefs that they don't know that they have. And then next thing you know, they do something and they're not even aware of it. So it's an awareness thing. Yes, I'm not going to self-sabotage myself. And then I evaluate my stress levels. Am I stressed? Is there anything bothering me? Anything at home? Anything that's going to cause me to trade poorly today, right? And so I just have this process that I go through each day to make sure that I'm at the top of my game.
I like that, because you've named the parts that can be a tripping point, which I think a lot of people, when they're not using reality as the basis, they do become overconfident. Getting back to what we were talking about before, they don't actually see that there are possibilities where they can fall over or run with scissors. Actually, I've got another study I'd love your thoughts on. There was a guy who, Harber, I think his name was Harber, and it was early 2010s, I think. It was around about that time, so it's fairly recent. He took arachnophobes and gave them a tarantula in front of them and asked them to measure how far away that tarantula was in their mind. Interestingly, the people who had a higher level of self-concept, a higher level of self-awareness, and who liked themselves, saw that threat as being further away. The people who had less confidence in themselves saw the threat as being closer. Now, translating this to everything that you've just said is we need to have reality thinking. We want to have enough psychological wherewithal so that we have the ability to like ourselves, to have confidence, but not overconfidence, and to be able to see the threats with a realistic view. Now, what you're talking about is a lot of people, they would accuse you of being negative. Don't say self-sabotage, otherwise you'll go towards self-sabotage. But what you're really saying is you're aware that it can be a risk, and you're in a realistic way evaluating that threat. What are your thoughts, Casey?
Yeah, I agree. And I love that study. I think that's pretty interesting. You've got some great studies. You're well prepared, which is great. And it reminds me of the first time that we talked years ago. I remember exactly what you said. You were talking about triggers and preparing yourself how you were going to respond ahead of time when that trigger happens, right? So okay, if this thing comes in my path and I usually respond this way, I'm going to predetermine my new path. And I think that's really great for trading, because okay, I get fearful. What am I going to do? I already know because you know what? I've predetermined what it's going to be. I'm just going to step away. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to let myself be responding by my triggers. And it's a great thing to do on a daily basis. Reprogramming those triggers. I was doing some reading on some neurocycles, which is, reprogramming yourself by looking at the same thing over and over again and writing it down each day, writing down your reactions, being aware on how to reprogram your mind.
I like that. And I actually even have an extension exercise for everybody playing along. I would like you to try re-diagnosing your trigger and reclassifying it as a cue. Now, if we can take a little bit of the threat out of the word trigger that can actually give us a little bit more self-agency and self-mastery in how we respond to that trigger. So rather than calling it a trigger, Casey, I wonder, what are your thoughts if we start calling them cues?
Cues, as in a cue, like give me a definition of cue.
A cue would be something that you have noticed that could give you a chance of creating another behavior based on that particular cue. So rather than a trigger which has a negative connotation, when this happens, I have to react this way. When my spouse says, well, have you emptied the dishwasher? I will react and say, how dare you? How dare you? You haven't emptied the dishwasher either. So that's like a trigger because there's an instant reaction. But if we consider that as a cue, we take the threat out of that trigger. We say, that is a cue to say that one of us is going to empty the dishwasher. It could be me. It could be the other person. I don't know. So I can answer with a lot more rationality and a lot more self-mastery and say, no, the dishwasher is not yet unloaded. So
that's really good.
It's good.
That's really good because you just hit it with me perfectly, right?
About the dishwasher? Have I triggered you off?
Yes. No, it was perfect because like this is something that just happened to me within the most recent week, and it was my wife telling me to empty out the garbage and take it out. Right. And so I get a little annoyed, to say the least. I get a little annoyed. And so now I'm going to have a much better response because the next time that cue comes up, I'm going to be super sweet when it happens. So you just helped me out a lot.
I love that. I love that. I do think that is one of the traits of successful traders, is being able to downregulate our emotions so that we can react with objectivity. What are some of the other successful traits in your podcast? You have interviewed so many good people. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy that I've been able to introduce a few as well for you to be able to interview. But I would like to hear your view. If you can perhaps put in a nutshell for us, what do you think the traits of successful traders are?
So we've been talking about one of them, which is awareness, self-awareness, because really it is mental. It's mental, right? And then so awareness is a big one. And then another one is, we talked a little bit about it, but just perseverance. Being able to go through some difficulties without giving up, having that, I think having a vision for your future, a vision for your life, a vision for financial freedom is a really big trait. Understanding that it's not going to be easy, but that it's worth it. So you're willing to do the work. Understanding that it's not really about the market and it's not really about your strategy, but it's really about you. And understanding that you have to be willing to solve a financial problem. It's not a get rich quick scenario, but it's all about solving a problem and being willing to do the work to solve that problem. So that's just a few things that I just threw out right off the top of my head that I think really help traders be successful and make good traders.
I do like that. I like the way that you're weaving as a subtext non-reactivity into all of those traits. So we're aiming not to react with that instant knee-jerk. Perhaps we're not reacting with our old brain, that very central part of our brain, that limbic system, which is the fight, flight, or freeze. Maybe we're aiming to react out of that prefrontal cortex, that older part of our brain is covered with a layer of new brain, prefrontal cortex, which is verbal. It has specific instructions. It's structured. It has delayed gratification. So what you're saying is that these traders that you've been interviewing are very mature people because they've been able to integrate a lot of the parts of their own brain functionality.
Yeah, delayed gratification is a big one. Everybody that I talk to seems to really struggle with that because they want to make money and they want to make money yesterday.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that can actually foul up our decision making. We go for that quick fix. We aim to find the thing that will shorten the distance between us and the money, even if that is actually shooting ourselves in the foot, because sometimes that quick fix can be the thing that will encourage poor behaviors and habits. So that is a difficult aspect. Actually, I know on your recent podcast, you've been talking a lot about financial success and being able to evaluate financial success. What does financial success mean to you?
So for me, it's really being able to control my schedule, control my calendar, and being able to do some of the things that I want to do. And so I call that financial freedom. Freedom's just so powerful and it's wonderful. I actually tell people that I've basically been retired since I was like 30, but I still work a lot, but it's because I get to do the stuff that I like, right? And so it doesn't really count if you're doing stuff that you want to do. You get to control your schedule. But yeah, being financially free is really important. And some of the key concepts of financial freedom are really understanding that you have to take good measurement of what is coming in and coming out, accounting systems. And that sounds really boring, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And taking stock of what your skills are and what your possessions are, and utilizing those to create revenue. When I first started, I didn't have a lot, but I took what I did have, right? I didn't have money, very little, but I had some computer skills and I had some knowledge of the markets. And so I took those skills and I unleashed them to help me grow.
But you also took areas that you weren't comfortable in and you managed to find ways to build up your thoughts and skill sets in those areas. See, that's the part that I like about you, Casey, because you're quite highly evolved here to be able to be the father of 9 children. Anyway, my goodness, but you've got a way of not only harnessing your strengths, but also being able to recognize and acknowledge your weaknesses. And I think that's a real key to successful trading.
Well, sometimes our greatest strength is also a huge weakness. Like, for example, my overconfidence, thinking that I can do anything, is a great strength because it gets me started, but it also got me into a lot of trouble. So learning to take my strength and maybe tone it back in some areas, and like you said, the evolving. I'm a little bit better. I'm actually not a little bit better. I'm a lot better. Risk is really not even an issue for me anymore. It's just I've really programmed myself so it's easy, but it was not easy. It was very difficult, but now it's really easy.
Yeah, you've managed to incorporate quite a few things where I don't think the average person, unless they put conscious effort into it, incorporate. I've got a piece of research for you that I'd like your thoughts on. I interviewed Luke Mathers. Now, Luke Mathers is the author of Stress Teflon and Curious Habits. And look, he's fascinating. He's got this catch, weight, reset method. Now, I'll take you through it, right? Because I think this is what you do naturally. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because I have a feeling this is an intuitive aspect, but I would like to decouple that from your intuition, Casey, and see whether this is what you're actually doing. First of all, you catch yourself in a particular mood or in a particular mindset. You're first of all self-aware that that mood has occurred or that cue has occurred. And then you wait, you put a pause in between you with your mood or your reaction and the action that you're going to take. And then you choose, because you've got that pause, so you've got a little bit of thinking time, you choose to reset if that is not the reaction that you would like to take. Even the way you talked about what you're going to do from now on with your wife about taking out the garbage. First of all, being aware, giving yourself a break to be able to choose, and then choosing to reset what was about to come out of your mouth, choosing to reset your view or that instant reaction. I sense that this is what you have done. I would like your thoughts on that.
So it's kind of funny because I'm a pretty smart guy, but I'm not fast, right? So like, let's say there's some people that are just so verbally sharp, right? They can come up with a response like boom, boom, boom. But me, I'm like, the wheels start turning and it takes some time for them to go.
Me too,
So
actually. I don't think this
yeah.
this is absolutely nothing to do with IQ. I often hark back to the people who have that instant reaction as sometimes the ones that end up in hot water. So thinking about an answer and thinking about your reactions, it is absolutely totally acceptable.
Well, I think the people that are able to go quickly and they just like if you get in a verbal battle with them, they always win, right? It's like without like, actually my daughter's like that. She's
My
just
sister.
like boom, 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 boom. And I can't keep up. And the reason I brought that up is because sometimes when people will ask me a question and I'm just like, I'll just stare at them and they're like, I'm like, well, give me a minute. It just takes a while
Turn it
for
over.
it to kick in. And that's kind of like what you were saying with this process and, being able to react and control your reaction. And it's not something that I do on purpose. It's just, I'm a little slower. But it has helped me. That being slower has helped me so I don't know if that's just a natural thing or if that's self-conscious or being aware to do it. But I will say this, if I react wrong, I don't beat myself up, right? And I think that's really important. So if I make a mistake, I'll be like, okay, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to say that. I'm not going to beat myself up. I'm just going to do better next time. And it doesn't matter if I make the same mistake 10 times in a row. I'm never going to beat myself up. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm going to do better. And I try to take action. I don't just say it. I want to say, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to change it? What actions am I going to take to do better next time?
That's really good, because I do see a lot of traders make that mistake. They persecute themselves. They totally dump themselves into that mood tunnel where you just do not want to be and you can't see the light. What would be some of the other big mistakes that traders make?
Yeah. So just on that same topic, like beating yourself up or even calling yourself names like, oh, I'm such a dummy. Oh, I can't believe I did that. Like self-talk is really a big one. And it's not just a trading thing. That's like an athletic thing, a high performing thing. Just, don't do that. Don't be very mindful of the words that come out of your mouth and the thoughts that come into your head. If there's a negative thought that says that you can't do something or that you're making a mistake, you take that thought and you just shut it down. Like I've trained myself to not think certain thoughts, right? So if it comes in, I shut it down, right? It's gone. And that's taken some time. And now, once you do that, then those thoughts never even come in, like, oh, I'm an idiot. Oh, I'm going to fail. Oh, I used to beat myself. I had very low confidence, very low self-esteem, but I learned to take those thoughts and to turn them around.
So what you're telling me is that you are intuitively using that catch, wait, reset method, which is lovely. I do always like it when somebody names a specific method.
That is good. That is good. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it brings a certain level of clarity to the discussion, doesn't it? Look, I'd like to chat more about your army background. As you know, I do have such a soft spot for people in the armed forces, in the police force, anything that requires that ultimate level of discipline. I just find fascinating. One of the members of my mentor program, he was in bomb disposal. Oh my goodness, he is so calm. He's the coolest
High
person.
cortisol.
Oh, shockingly good.
Yeah.
Really. Like, I remember one time I said to him, oh, Jeff, I actually need your help to look after this person because they're unwell. And he was like, I'm on it. It's just like, yes. It's like, here we go. I don't have to mention it twice. Off he goes. So Mr. Bomb Disposal is a very good trader. I would like to talk about the research that says in the army, you're told that once your body is just ready to shut down, okay, it is just, you have just trained yourself into oblivion and there's almost no other energy left in the tank. The Army teaches you that your body can handle 40% more after your mind gives up. Now, I find that fascinating. Do you feel if that is accurate, or is that an overstatement?
The body can handle 40% more after your mind is given up. That's interesting. That is really interesting. I have one thought that kind of came into my mind, and it's a personal experience, and it has to do with running. So when I was in the military, I signed up for a 12-mile run, and it was like a race type thing, and it was in Iraq, so it was really hot. And I didn't train real well for it, but I would say, like, when I was running and I hit mile number 10, that I only had 2 miles to go, I literally felt like I ran into a brick wall. Okay. And so I don't know if that was my body shutting down or my mind. Which was it? Was it my body saying I couldn't do it, or was it my mind? But I literally felt like I was in a wall and I just couldn't do it. And so I just kept going, and it was really difficult. Like, my muscles were shutting down, and it wasn't 12 miles isn't that long, but it was just hot and I hadn't trained. But I just kept going, and I finished. And then for about 3 weeks, I was walking with a limp because I was really damaged my leg. I don't know what I did, but it was very painful after that.
Wow. So sometimes we need to listen to our own mind as well, telling us.
Sometimes your body is telling you need to take a break, right?
Yeah.
And if you keep going, you're going to get hurt. So sometimes your mind says, oh, I can't do this. That's when you need to push in. But sometimes your body is saying, stop, and you need to listen to your body.
Yeah, so that awareness, it is interesting, isn't it? When we've got a goal, what that does to our actions. I interviewed Dr. Kai Bretz, who is Australia's fastest man over a 24-hour period. Now, 24 hours, I said that correctly, Casey. He runs these ultra marathons.
That's amazing.
Crazy distances. So he ran 267 kilometers in 24 hours, but he does it again and again. Now, in the middle of one of his huge races, a 500-kilometer race, he got bitten by a redback spider. Now, redbacks they are lethal here. Like, we are plagued with bizarre.
I've never heard of them, but
creatures.
I need to look into that.
No,
that's crazy.
They are out in my front yard. Okay, they are aggressive.
Australia is so dangerous.
Really, so dangerous. I mean, it's amazing I'm still alive, frankly. But they've got a pretty red streak on their back. So, you have to train your children here. Don't touch the spider, because kids reach for the red, So yes, these are aggressive things. So he got bitten by a redback spider in the middle of the race, went to hospital, got pumped up with antibiotics, said to the doctor, can I keep running? And the doctor said, yeah, okay. And he continued on that race and won it by 17 hours. It was just staggering to me.
Amazing. I love it.
So I do think that is what got us out of the caves, that pioneering spirit. But I do also take under advisement what you're saying, to have a bit of a moderate view. Don't keep pushing yourself past the point of no return, because you can hurt yourself. And in the markets, I think that is actually a good truth to live by as well. So that self-awareness is important.
Yeah, you can definitely push yourself beyond repair in the market too.
Yeah, you really can. I've actually got another aspect that I've been meaning to ask you about. This is so nice, Casey, because I've had all of these questions bubbling up inside me, looking forward to this interview and to know that it's going out both to my podcast, talkingtrading.com.au, and your podcast as well, How to Trade It. How nice is that? Now, I loved the make your bed speech given by Admiral William H. McRaven. I think you might have seen it. There are a lot of people who have seen that speech. He talks about the importance of making your bed, because what that does is it sets your day off well, and you've had that one level of discipline to do something that will cascade and create momentum throughout the day. Now, I like that because it's military discipline to overcome day-to-day hardships. I would love to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I love it too. And you know what I really like about it? Not just the discipline side, but the idea that small wins are still wins, right? Because sometimes when we're really struggling, we can't get any wins. And so if you can do a small win, it's a great baseline, right? If everything in the whole world could be going against you, but maybe there's just this one little tiny thing. Maybe you can do nothing, but if you can just do the one thing, if you can just do one thing, that's a starting point. That's a building block. You plant that block in the ground, you do the one thing that you can do, and you celebrate that win, and then you look for another win. Don't get overwhelmed by all the other things that you can't do, because there's so much out of your control, so many things going against you can't do, but there is that one little thing you can do. Focus on that and do it well.
Casey, I'm going to aim to summarize what we've been discussing, and I want you to have a think and fill in the blanks for me, because we are about to land this plane. Casey,
get me behind the cockpit.
You're on it. This is your moment of glory, my friend. Now, what we have been talking about today is honoring the small wins and looking at your own self-awareness. So making sure that you're responding to cues rather than triggers, and realizing that trading is something where if you get the right mentor and the right education, it is totally within your realms to achieve and to become that trading success that your future self is requesting of you. Now, Casey, is there anything here that I've missed out in that summary that you'd like to pay attention to? And then we'll tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, you missed out that people that have a high level of confidence can do anything, even if it's not even remotely based in truth.
Oh, absolutely. That's where we're going with this podcast. Now, as I mentioned, I'm Louise Bedford. If you are a member of Casey's group, you can find me on talkingtrading.com.au, and you can also download my free trading plan template to help you get the most out of your trading plan. My trading plan template is available at tradinggame.com.au. tradinggame.com.au. Download the free trading plan template there. It will help you implement everything that Casey and I have been discussing on this show. And Casey, your wrap up?
Yeah, you can find me at tradingstrategyguides.com, and I have a free swing trade strategy right on that page. Step-by-step instructions on the swing trade strategy at tradingstrategyguides.com.
Magic. Casey, you have just been such a delight to have on the show, and I have loved it. I've loved all of our conversations. You're definitely a household name, and I am very honored to be on your show as well. So as a complete wrap up for both shows, happy trading, and we will see you on the very next episode. Thanks for your time, Casey.
Thank you.